Hi, and thanks for joining me. This is the latest edition of my studio poetry diary. I haven't done one of these for a while, but I was put in mind of this poem the other day when I received the very sad news of the passing of a colleague who'd been suffering, like so many people at the moment, with coronavirus. It's a poem called Lights Out by the English writer Edward Thomas, who, like so many of his generation, died in the First World War at the Battle of Arras in 1917, though he was much older than many of them. He was 39 when he died and was relatively late to writing poetry, having made his living at the earlier part of his career as a literary critic and writer of nature journals. And it's his writing about nature that gives his poetry such potency and which had such an influence on later generations of writers, including people like Seamus Heaney and Ted Hughes, who called him the father of us all. His widow, Edward Thomas's widow, Helen Thomas, was very specific that this poem, Lights Out, should only be seen as a poem about going to sleep, which it is, and that there shouldn't be any deeper significance attached to it. But it's impossible now, knowing as we do what happened to Edward Thomas, but also in our own current times when there are so many people embarking on their final journey alone without friends and family. It's impossible not to see the deeper significance of this poem, Lights Out by Edward Thomas. I have come to the borders of sleep, the unfathomable deep forest where all must lose their way, however straight or winding, soon or late. They cannot choose. Many a road and track that since the dawn's first crack up to the forest brink deceived the travellers, suddenly now blurs, and in they sink. Here love ends. Despair, ambition end. All pleasure and all trouble, although most sweet or bitter, here ends in sleep that is sweeter than tasks most noble. There is not any book or face of dearest look I would not turn from now. To go into that unknown I must enter and leave alone. I know not how. The tall forest towers. Its cloudy foliage lowers ahead, shelf above shelf. Its silence I hear and obey, that I may lose my way and myself.